Most people believe gaslighting is something only toxic or manipulative individuals do, a deliberate act designed to confuse, control, and break someone down. But what if I told you that some of the most damaging forms of gaslighting aren't intentional? What if the people doing it don't even realize they're doing it? And even more unsettling, what if you've done it too? Not out of malice, but out of habit, fear, or misunderstanding. Because the truth is, gaslighting isn't always a weapon. Sometimes it's a defense mechanism, and once you see it, you won't just recognize it in others. You'll start to notice it in yourself. Gaslighting has become a popular word. People use it to describe manipulation, emotional abuse, or toxic behavior. But beneath the surface, there's a deeper psychological reality most people never talk about. Not all gaslighting is intentional. Sometimes it's subtle, unconscious, even socially conditioned. In this video, I'm going to break down the hidden psychology behind unintentional gaslighting. Why people do it, how it shows up in everyday conversations, and most importantly, how to recognize it so you can protect your mental clarity without becoming defensive or disconnected. Because by the end of this, you won't just understand gaslighting, you'll understand something far more powerful: how fragile human perception really is. Let's start with a simple truth. Human beings don't experience reality objectively. We experience it through interpretation, through emotion, through memory, through bias, which means two people can go through the exact same situation and walk away with completely different versions of what happened. Now, here's where it gets interesting. When those two versions clash, most people don't say, "Maybe we see this differently." Instead, they say, "That's not what happened. You're overreacting, you're remembering it wrong." And just like that, reality becomes a battlefield. Not because someone is trying to manipulate, but because they are trying to protect their own version of truth. This is where unintentional gaslighting begins. It's not always about control. It's often about self-protection. When people feel accused, criticized, or misunderstood, their brain shifts into defense mode. And in that moment, their goal isn't truth, it's emotional survival. So instead of listening, they dismiss. Instead of understanding, they correct. Instead of validating, they deny. They might say things like, "I never said that. You're being too sensitive." You always twist things, but what they're really saying is, "I feel uncomfortable, and I need this to stop." This isn't always manipulation. It's emotional immaturity mixed with fear. But the impact feels exactly the same as intentional gaslighting: confusion, self-doubt, emotional instability. And instead of understanding, they respond with, "It was just a joke. You're overthinking it." Now pause here. They didn't intend to hurt you. They didn't wake up thinking, "I'm going to manipulate this person." But in that moment, they dismissed your emotional reality. They replaced your experience with their intention. And this is one of the most common forms of unintentional gaslighting. Confusing intent with impact. They think, "I didn't mean to hurt you, so you shouldn't feel hurt." But emotions don't work like that. Impact exists, whether intention was there or not. And when impact is denied, the other person begins to feel invisible. Here's something most people don't realize. Memory is not a recording, it's a reconstruction. Every time we remember something, we slightly change it. We reshape it. We fill in gaps with assumptions, which means sometimes people genuinely believe their version is correct, even when it's not. So when someone says, "That's not what happened," they might not be lying. They might be remembering differently. But here's the problem. They present their memory as absolute truth. And in doing so, they unintentionally erase yours. This creates a subtle psychological imbalance. Because if one person is always right, the other starts to feel unreliable. And over time, they begin to doubt their own perception, not because they're wrong, but because they're constantly being overridden. Let's take this into a workplace scenario. You clearly remember your manager giving you a specific instruction. Later, when something goes wrong, they say, "I never told you to do that." Now you're stuck, because you know what you heard, but their authority, their confidence, their certainty makes you question yourself. So you start thinking, maybe I misunderstood, maybe I messed up, even if you didn't. And this is how unintentional gaslighting can quietly exist in professional environments, not as manipulation, but as a mix of ego, pressure, and flawed memory. And the result? People lose confidence in their own judgment. At its core, unintentional gaslighting is driven by three psychological forces. First, ego protection. People want to see themselves as good, reasonable, and right. So when faced with conflict, they unconsciously reshape reality to protect that identity. Admitting fault feels like losing control. So instead they deny, deflect, or minimize, not to harm others, but to preserve their self-image. Second, emotional avoidance. Some people are deeply uncomfortable with difficult emotions, guilt, shame, regret. So when someone expresses hurt, instead of sitting with that discomfort, they invalidate it. If I don't accept your pain, I don't have to feel responsible. It's not conscious, but it's powerful. Third, social conditioning. Many of us were raised in environments where emotions were dismissed. Stop crying. It's not a big deal. Just move on. So we learn that feelings are problems to be fixed, not experiences to understood, not because we want to hurt others, but because we were never taught another way. This next one is subtle but extremely common: minimization. It sounds like it's not that serious. You're making a big deal out of nothing. Other people have it worse. On the surface, it seems harmless, even logical. But psychologically, it sends a very specific message. Your feelings are not valid. And when this happens repeatedly, people stop expressing themselves. They suppress. They internalize. They disconnect because it feels safer than being dismissed. Now here's where things shift, because recognizing gaslighting in others is easy. Recognizing it in yourself, that's where real growth begins. Ask yourself, do I ever dismiss someone's feelings because I don't understand them? Do I prioritize my intention over their experience? Do I correct people instead of listening to them? Do I become defensive when someone tells me I hurt them? If the answer is yes, that doesn't make you a bad person. It makes you human. But awareness is the turning point, because once you see it, you can change it. If someone unintentionally gaslights you, the goal is not to attack, not to escalate, but to stay grounded in your reality. Instead of saying, "You're gaslighting me," say, or "I understand that's how you see it, but this is how it felt to me." This does two things. It protects your perception, and it reduces defensiveness, because you're not trying to win, you're trying to be understood. And sometimes, that's the most powerful position you can take. Here's the truth most people don't realize. People don't distort reality because they're evil. They do it because they're afraid. Afraid of being wrong. Afraid of being judged. Afraid of losing control. And once you understand that, you stop taking everything personally. You start seeing behavior for what it is. A reflection of internal struggle. Not always an attack on you. But at the same time, you stop tolerating patterns that damage your clarity, because empathy doesn't mean self-abandonment. You can understand someone and still protect yourself. Gaslighting isn't always loud. It doesn't always look like manipulation. Sometimes it sounds like concern, like logic, like certainty. But its impact is the same. It slowly disconnects people from their own reality. And once that happens, they become easier to control, easier to silence, easier to lose. But awareness changes everything, because when you understand how perception works, when you recognize these patterns, when you stay grounded in your own experience, you become mentally stronger, clearer, more resilient, and the most powerful part, you stop passing the pattern forward. You become someone who listens, who validates, who understands, and in a world where most people are unconsciously distorting reality, that makes you rare. If this made you think differently about human behavior, take a moment.